marked a lot of assignments in my time, a lot of essays, a lot of presentations, and there are certain mistakes that I see happen time and time again. If you want good grades, I suggest you don't make these mistakes. So here is my advice to you on 7 reasons why a lot of students' assignments get a bad grade, and they are things that you can avoid. So the first mistake is poor spelling, grammar, and punctuality. Now, I like to think my spelling and grammar is pretty good, but I am renowned for typos. I write really quickly, and I read it, I do proofread it, but I just don't see my own typos. And I'm not the only one. Maybe your spelling and grammar does need to be improved. Maybe it's okay and you're terrible at making typos. Or maybe English is not your first language and you need a little bit of help. Whatever it might be, usually for your assignment you will be awarded a certain amount of points for spelling, grammar and punctuality. Easy points to get, easy points to lose. Proofread it, get somebody to check it. You can download a pretty helpful app too. It's called Grammarly, and I will put the link to Grammarly down in the comments. It's totally free, and Grammarly actually goes through and checks your work for spelling and grammar, so I recommend that. Download that. Mistake number 2 is referencing. Some students don't reference. Some students do it wrong. But usually, as with spelling and grammar, many pieces of work will offer you a specific amount of points for referencing. So this is usually 5 to 15%, depending on the piece of work that you're doing. Again, easy marks to win, easy marks to lose. If you don't know how to reference, I have a handy video, I'll put it at the end, and just check it. There's referencing software out there you can use. However, I like to do it myself because I think sometimes these softwares, they punch out references and you copy and paste and put it into your work, but it's not always that accurate and it's not always to the required specifications of your college or university. So I would proceed with caution if that's what you want to use, but just get it right. It might take you a little bit of time at the beginning to master, but it's so worth it because for the rest of your course you'll know how to do it. It's actually kind of like learning to ride a bike. I learnt referencing and I really don't think I'll ever forget it. I've done it so much. Mistake number 3 is having a lack of research and not enough sources. If a student has completed their work very quickly, they've done an all-nighter the night before, or they've just not put in enough effort, it's quite obvious. And one of the big telltale signs is that there's just not enough references and not enough research. I can tell, especially if it is an area of my specialism. So what you will often find when you are at university level studying, you will often find that your teachers will, or your lecturers, professors, will teach their specialism. So they know their stuff. And if you're doing a rushed job, they really will know straight away. It's so obvious. Student mistake number 4 is plagiarism. Now, plagiarism is a big problem. And most people think, yeah, that's copying, that's copy and paste. You're right if you think that, but you're actually only partly right. Because a lot of the time, students plagiarize, but they actually don't mean to do it. Paraphrasing is a really important skill, and paraphrasing is essentially reading something and put it into your own words. Now that might sound really easy, but students get it wrong all the time. And the reason that us lecturers or professors know this is because you will often be required to submit your work into some kind of plagiarism checker. Now you can use a plagiarism checker at home. Grammarly has one actually. Download Grammarly, link in the description. Anyway, if you do not adequately reword stuff, it picks it up and it will tell us as lecturers, or you as students, if you check for yourself, what percentage of your work is plagiarized and where it came from, what source you've used, etc. So unless you really master that skill of rewording things, you're at risk for plagiarism. And obviously, there are people who copy and paste, and that is absolutely not okay. Mistake number 5 is that the work that you produce as a student just isn't what the teacher's asking you for. And you might laugh, but sometimes students have handed me in work that is great, it's really good, but that's not what I asked for. And I can't award marks for something that is not what they were supposed to do. So sometimes students will be really surprised that they don't get the best mark because they have produced a lot of work, they put a lot of time into it, they put a lot of effort, but they're not answering the question. And that's really important. If you're not entirely sure, ask your teacher or your lecturer or your professor. Ask them. Maybe swap work with your friends and just have a look at what are they doing. Don't copy them, of course, but see if they're on the same lines as you. And if they're not, question it. Maybe they might be wrong and you're right. But it's a good idea to get a feel for this, especially if you're not that confident and you're not 100% sure that you are actually doing the right thing. Now, one of the major reasons for this is because students get confused with the academic verbs. Now, academic verbs are basically doing words, and they're the words that tell you what to do. And if you don't quite understand exactly what those academic verbs are asking you for, that's when students will often do the wrong thing. So for example, I have seen time and time again students who describe when they should analyse. This is a really common one. So I recommend you really thoroughly familiarise yourself with those academic verbs, and I have made a video all about it, and I will link to that in a couple of minutes at the end. Mistake number 6 is when a student's work is not very well organised. So what I recommend you do, whatever your work is, whether it's a dissertation, whether it's an essay, whether it's a report, whether it's a presentation, whether it's an exam, a long exam question, one of the most important things you can do is to plan it. So I would often recommend that you do just a short plan. It might be a bullet point list or a spider diagram or something like that. Have a look at what are the weightings for your assignment. So often you will get a certain number of points for doing certain things in that assignment. So then work out, how long is your work supposed to be? How many points do you get for each bit? Therefore, how many words or how many minutes do you allocate to each section? One thing that I see all the time is dissertation students who spend a really, really long time on their literature review. They get great marks for it. They then rush the end of their project, the results, the analysis and the discussion, and they don't get such good grades. But usually you can award a certain number of grades for each part of the dissertation. So they might get wonderful grades for their literature review, but if the other parts are not good, I just simply can't award those grades. So I strongly recommend that before you just sit down and start writing, which is what most students do, take a step back, think about it logically, and just spend, sometimes it only warrants a few minutes, and those few minutes can make the biggest difference. And student mistake number 7 is one that I've actually just mentioned a couple of mistakes ago. The work is too descriptive and not analytical enough. Let's say I am analysing, let's say my research question is to analyse the ethics of dark tourism. I should say what dark tourism is. That's identify. I should describe the dark tourism industry. But then I need to build on that. It's like a building block, right? I need to build on that, and I need to do that analysis because that's where I'm getting my marks if it's an analysed question. And again, this is one of those doing words, one of those academic verbs that we really need to understand. So if I'm analysing it, I might look at examples of different dark tourism attractions around the world. I will look at the literature, the good stuff, the bad stuff. Why is the bad stuff bad? Why is the good stuff good? How does that link? How could it be better? How could it be worse? I'm analysing it. Anyway, I'm not going to delve too much into that now, but if this is something that you think will be useful for you, and I definitely think it will, do watch my video, which I will put here, all about academic verbs, and print it off. Keep it on your wall. Keep it in a file on your computer, whatever you want to do. It's a useful one. Definitely recommend you watch that next. And I've got others too. And you can subscribe. Do it all. Why not?